that roar when you ran out just puts goosebumps on the back of your neck.
Moss went straight through, Ezra's there!
He's just forever looking for an opportunity.
Exhilarating football!
That's a good sign of a good team.
Accelerates and punches through them!
And he's only going to get better.
And the hammer stands them up! And Queensland going to do it again!
Well, thanks for joining us on this week's edition of Queenslander. Just Locky and I today. While the King is down in Sydney, Locky filming an ad for, I think, the lotteries department. Hopefully, you can get us some winning numbers. But the biggest traction we got last week is you talking about that Kia ad. So a lot of good responses there.
Yeah, it's a decent ad. A significant amount of talent in there. And yeah, I've had a lot of people talk about it since the ad's come out. And yeah, like it's obviously hit the mark, and they did it. They didn't do things in halves, Kia, and they've done this one well. And
they've paid you well too. Racing in with that Kia Stinger into the car park here at Channel 9, goes pretty fast.
Yeah, the Stinger goes good. A lot of the cops, the police, use the Stingers. So mine actually was nicked not long ago.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, but the police did some great work and got it back to me before, it was about 5 days after, got it back to me before there was too much damage done. And so a bit of a shout out to the police here. They did their stealth investigation, found it and brought it back to me. Yeah.
Well, nice. Well, good work there, Locky, and the police of Brisbane there. But the big investigation, if you want to call it that, this week, Spencer Leniu, the Ezra Mam case. Good that it's finally resolved. And how hard will it be for Ezra to put all that noise to the back of his mind now that he plays again on Thursday?
Oh, I think since it's all happened, obviously been a lot of talk about it in the media, and now the case is somewhat closed, or the decision's been made, handed down. I think it just allows everyone to move on, and especially Ezra. I think now he can put that behind him, so to speak, and just focus on the footy, and I'm sure the game can't come quick enough for him on Thursday.
And can an incident like this have a unifying impact on the Broncos now, almost for the rest of the season, of like, we've got your back?
Well, since it all started and happened over in Las Vegas, that was pretty much the common theme amongst the staff and amongst the players, that we've got Ezra, we support Ezra, we've got his back, and I think it has a galvanising impact on the team, and they've been very good. And they've managed it appropriately through a difficult situation. And I guess now a lot of eyes are looking as to how they play or perform Thursday night.
Interesting too, Leniu admitted and apologised in that judiciary hearing to confronting Ezra in the hallway at the hotel where Pat Carrigan stepped in. So he apologised to both of them. So It's a difficult situation, and JT, our mate at Wide World of Sports, have been very vocal about it. He thinks the NRL missed an opportunity, only getting 8 weeks. He's called for a mandatory, if you're found guilty or admit to racially abusing someone, 12 weeks is the minimum. What do you think on that?
Well, firstly, I think, Jono's, proud Indigenous man, works in a lot of Indigenous programs, so he understands the history and the hurt when it comes to racism, First Nations people. So when you see him emotional talking about it, you know it's from the heart. And obviously, I said last week the game had an opportunity to make a statement about racism, and I think if Spencer hadn't have been remorseful and not owned it and apologised, then I think it would have been 12 weeks. But He's got 8, and I think I've always, a statement I think has been made by the game. I think the positive to come out of this is that we've been talking about it since Las Vegas, and it becomes almost an educational piece for society, because people understand what's right and what's wrong and what's accepted and what's not accepted when it comes to racism. So it's all a learning curve, and we're all working towards trying to stamp it out of not just sport but society. So I think we deal with it appropriately, and I think there has been that done here in this case, and we hope that as a society we learn from it and we prevent the mistakes from happening again.
And as a player now, do you think it'd be in the back of your mind of like, I'm not going to say anything like that because of what's happened? It clearly would already have an impact.
Well, you asked Spencer that question, he's obviously learnt and he's paid a price for this. You know, I think it just, again, it's an opportunity for the game to educate society, not just sport, about what's accepted, what's not accepted. And I think a lot of players, whether you're playing at the elite level or you're an 8-year-old playing, would have learned a hell of a lot in the last 10 days.
And let's talk about footy for once. Going back to that round 1 game, the Broncos and the Roosters. It was only a narrow loss, but what do the Broncos need to improve on from that game?
Yeah, look, I think, when they lost Piakura and then Paddy Carrigan had to go to the edge, I think they just lost a bit of momentum or punch in the middle of the field. So for mine, dissecting or analysing that game, I think they just need to start to build momentum in the middle of the field before they start shifting the football. We've got some great strike weapons out wide, but you still need to break down the opposition's defence before you start using the footy. And
with those new backline combinations, how long do you think that'll take to settle? Selwyn, Cobbo in a centre, Dean Mariner has come onto the wing for Corey Oates. How long do you give that to adjust?
Look, I don't think that was the issue in Vegas, but I do think it'll just take, as they play more football together, those combinations will build. But again, the backs that are there, like if they're given time and space, they'll create some havoc for opposition defence. But the forwards need to create that time and space and then be selective about when they use those outside backs. So the combinations will build, but at the same time, I think they just need to go back to basics, build momentum before they start using the football.
Is Cobbo a centre for you?
Yeah, look, I think, again, he's going to get better with every game. He reminds me very much, and we always say, Greg Inglis. Greg, fullback, winger, and then he's worked his way into the centres. He's a big body. I think a lot of people sort of say that his biggest test will be the defensive workload, and once he gets his fitness and his confidence in that space, I think the attack, it'll just flow. Yeah, interested to see how those combinations work. I would have Jesse Arthurs in the centres. I'd move Cobbo back to the wing, and you know how much I love Oatesy, so I'd have Oatesy on the left wing with Jesse Arthurs, the right side Cobbo and Staggs, and then Dean Mariner's that guy of if someone gets injured, can come in and fill in the team. But like you said, Mariner was actually quite good in round 1. I'm just pushing Oatesy. Sounds like you watch a lot of the Broncos at training. Yeah. I think everyone's got their opinion, but I think you've got to give the current combination at least 6 weeks. Yeah. You've got to give them time to build those combos. And like I said, I think there's enough capability there if they're given the time and space they need. And the Rabbitohs backline is actually pretty thin at the moment. They played them on Thursday Night Footy on Channel 9. No Campbell Graham. Jack Whiten doesn't play again this week, still serving his suspension. Won't make his Rabbitohs debut to the following week. With that in mind, do you try and shift it wide early to try and set up those one-on-ones? Manly had a bit of success, I think, targeting Richie Kenner on that centre position. Yeah. Well, one thing I know about if a player had a few difficult moments in defence the week before, he would have worked extremely hard. So I would expect Richie Kenner to go and have a big week at training about preparing for the Broncos. But again, I don't think you can fall into the trap about shifting the ball early, trying to find deficiencies in the South's defence. You still got to build that ruck speed, that momentum in the middle before you shift the football. So yes, they are missing some quality players out wide, the Rabbits, but you still need to fatigue them before you start exposing them. And it looks as though Corey Jensen will start for the Broncos too. I like that move. Is this the worker that you need there? He's good, solid player, and a lot of the players I know like playing with him. He's a good guy, and he's honest. He won't let you down. You know what you're going to get. And he complements Paddy Carrigan and Payne Haas well. Another thing I really want to talk about, the Cowboys, the only Queensland team to win in round 1 of the NRL. I predicted it last week. They seem to perform really well on a dry, fast track afternoon footy. Who impressed you the most in that big win over the Dolphins? Oh, there was a number of good performers. I think, because they had such a disappointing year last year, they've gone away. They didn't have to play finals, so they started their pre-season early and they worked hard. It was a hot summer. They just looked fit, and it makes a big difference. You saw what the Dragons did on Saturday. If you're fit and you've come back lean, ready to go, it makes a difference. And probably for mine, I knew, you can understand why Todd has made Tommy Dearden and Reuben Cotter captains because of their attitude and what they bring. They bring work ethic, they bring energy. Tom Dearden was enormous from the perspective of little things in the game, like the amount of time he was first down there in a kick chase and made the first tackle was huge, and that was leading by example. So there was some really good performers there, but I think that, Tom stood out for me just because I know it's a big responsibility being captain at that age, but he owned it.
And Zach Labour stood out as well,
yeah.
the centre. I've seen a bit of him in the Queensland Cup. And when I covered the trial game in Mackay, the Broncos, the Cowboys, I said to the Cowboys coaching staff, who's had a big pre-season? They said, watch out for Zach Labour. They really like his offload ability as well, even though he didn't have to offload it against the Dolphins because he was just carving up.
Well, he's a class act, like he just made some difficult things look easy. I guess the other player that was impressive was the opposite centre, Val Holmes.
Yeah.
It's like he gets shot out of a cannon when he takes some of those hit-ups. But he turns a set that's starting to lose a bit of momentum into it, just totally changes it with one run. So he was enormous for him too.
And Felty, one more try now and he matches Matty Bowen's record, which seems phenomenal given how good Matty Bowen was all these years. I was talking to Felty after the game. He actually played one season with Matty Bowen. So the year Matty Bowen retired was the first season he played in the NRL, and he learned a lot, and he'd be very humbled to match that record. I think it's Saturday afternoon they play the Knights in Townsville. So as good as it would have been to see him tie that record with that drop ball over the line at the end, it'd be great to see him do it in front of his family and friends up in Townsville.
Mate, I feel like you're going to be there in the crowd with a sign. Yeah.
So I'll host a street parade up there in the Strand along Townsville if they want to do it afterwards.
I wonder if Matty Bowen's going to be there because he was enormous for the Cowboys, and I'd be surprised. I'd be interested to know how many tries Matty Bowen set up for Kyle Felt in his first year. Yeah.
Would Matty Bowen be one of the hardest guys you had to tackle?
That's a good assessment because it's not always the big guys that are the hardest to tackle. My favourite Matty Bowen story was when we were coming back from a Four Nations win. We beat England in 2004, and then we decided to have on the way home a game against the Tomahawks, the American Tomahawks in Philadelphia. And we played on synthetic turf, so a lot of us came off at the end of the game with carpet burns all over us. I don't recommend that, playing rugby league on synthetic turf. The other part to this was we just sort of, we were number one team in the world. We won the Four Nations, and we were at half-time, we were down 24-0.
To USA?
Yes, to USA.
Wayne was coaching there too,
Wayne was coaching. Half-time, Wayne come in, didn't even say anything, walked straight back out. Steve Walters was the manager. And he said, guys, we've got a problem here. Like, this can't happen. Anyway, so they put Matty Bowen on at half-time. He scored 3 tries in the first 15 minutes. It was 24-18, we're back in the game. And we end up winning it, but yeah, thank God for Matty Bowen.
Yeah, saved embarrassment about losing to the USA. And based on what the Cowboys did a couple of years ago, one try away from getting to the grand final against the Panthers in 2022, would it not surprise you if they were a top 4 team again this year, given it's relatively the same team, barring 1 or 2 or 3 players?
Well, I think the key is that fitness. Like I said, they looked rock hard fit round 1 after working hard in the off-season. Last year they looked flat and they just didn't have the same intensity or energy. Maybe that was on the back of a really good year in 22, but if they can keep their fitness up and keep their best players out there, I think top 4 is easily achievable for them.
And Saturday, is it a bit of a danger game coming up against the Knights, given that so many people thought Newcastle would win round 1, they were upset by the Raiders at home, they'll be fired up?
Well, you've got one team that's getting a lot of pats on the back and a lot of people applauding them for their performance in the Cowboys, playing at home. So there's an element there of getting complacent because you've got Newcastle who probably were very disappointed on their performance, and they're probably getting criticised down in Newcastle, and they'll go up there knowing they've got a big task in front of them. So they'll be ready to play football, Newcastle. It's just whether the Cowboys are willing to match that intensity.
And the Dolphins also get a home game this weekend, not at Suncorp Stadium, up at KO Stadium at Redcliffe. Their second home game in a row. How important is them for you to use that home ground advantage?
Well, they were disappointing on the weekend. Look, Cowboys were very good, but there was a lot of tries that, defensively, unlike Wayne Bennett teams. So they had a day, I would say that their attitude wasn't where it needed to be. I reckon it'll be where it needs to be this weekend, but there's still a few question marks over their game. But defensively, if they don't get that right, then I don't think they've got enough points in them. So if they're winning a low-score game.
And they've got a few problems in their forward pack early on. We mentioned it at length last week. No Tom Gilbert. Conley Lemuelu did his knee. He's out for an extended period. Ray Stone's got an HIA. So it really tests their forward depth. And it's an ageing forward pack. Does that make it more difficult as well, like with the Bromwich brothers, Felice Kafusi?
Well, I think... they can't go into games and just rely on structured football. Like they need to have offloads, second phase. They need to create some unpredictable play because at the moment, well, from what I've saw the back of last year and early in round one this year, that defensively they can turn up every week and make it hard for oppositions. But to find points in that team at the moment, they need to find some second phase footy and get blokes like Hammer, with speed around the ruck, creating something out of nothing. And
Herbie too. Like you didn't really notice Herbie much in that game, which was a shame.
Yeah, well, they weren't allowed to any time and space, and I think they're not getting the momentum in the middle of the field. But if they can, like even I thought Marshall King was probably a bit of an indicator for me, but he didn't get a lot of room to move either. So they need to find ways to to create space. And for mine at the moment, they just need to get a little bit of second phase footy happening.
And one of the positives, though, for the Dolphins was that huge crowd at Suncorp Stadium, close to 35,000. Even some of my spies tell me members of the Lockyer family were keen to go. Can you elaborate that on? Ditching the Broncos for a day to support the Dolphins. Was it your son?
Yeah, well, my three sons. So they were there. There's a lot of former Broncos from the staff at the Dolphins. So. Yeah. They were kind enough to allow some Lockyers into the stadium. I remember the eldest boy got chipped by one of the supporters when he was down at the fence after the game trying to get autographs, and also asked for a pair of boots from the players, but he had a pair of Bronco shorts on.
He's hedging his bets.
Well, I think there was some loyal Dolphins fans there questioning his motives or questioning his how true to the Dolphins he was. And I tend to agree. I said, mate, you can't walk in there with a pair of Bronco shorts on and hope that a Dolphin's going to give you their shoes. So anyway, it was a good atmosphere. Yeah, the game was a bit lopsided, but the fan base is there. There's the northern parts of Brisbane is such a huge population growth area, and it's great. The more people supporting rugby league, it's better for the game.
Definitely. A young fella can say he's a Tom Flegler and Herbie Farmer supporter if he's going to hedge his bets with Broncos and Dolphins gear, maybe for the next few weeks.
Yeah. I don't know how long that'll last.
But as we mentioned earlier, Cowboys, the only Queensland NRL club to get a victory in round one. Who would you be more concerned with if you were the Titans or the Dolphins? The Broncos were actually all right against the Roosters, who we think will be a genuine top 8 contender this year. But the Titans lost to the Dragons, or the fashion in which the Dolphins lost to the Cowboys, what's more alarming?
Well, I think they both eventually got blown off the park. There's probably a couple of players to come back into the Titans, which I think, for them, from experience perspective, the halves are very inexperienced. So when they lost him, that sort of was a big blow. But obviously, Jaden Campbell's another one.
Fafita comes back round
so
four. Yeah.
The Titans have got some strike to come back. There's not a lot more strike to come back for the Dolphins. So at the moment, you don't hit the panic button, but and I'm sure Wayne's been there many times before. He'll know what to do, but. I really struggle to find where they're going to score points.
And how much did the Titans miss Kieran Foran? Because they almost look rudderless when he doesn't play.
He's the experienced playmaker, and he'd be doing a lot of the talking at training. And then when he pulls out, not on the eve of the game, it disrupts things. And you bring in the young fella Weaver.
Tom Weaver's only played 4 NRL games.
Yeah, so that's a big step up for him. And, he's probably not thinking all week. He wasn't playing. And so, look, that's not the reason why they lost the game, but it has a big impact on your way you play. And in the end, the Dragons were too good. But the Titans would have lost a bit of confidence off the back of that game.
Yeah, the benefit for Gold Coast, they get a week off. They've got the bye this week, and the Dolphins, they're up at home against the Dragons, but it all kicks off. Nine's Friday night footy, blockbuster. The Broncos up against the Rabbitohs. Catch live and free coverage of that one.
This year, NRL on 9 is your one-stop shop for all footy.
That's right, Freddie. Not about the highlights, action, 7 days a week.
Billy and Gus podcast, get that on your drive on the way home. Immortal Behaviour, grab a seat on the couch for that. And of course, my favourite, Freddie in the 8.
The best footy brains, the biggest games.
Don't trust the algorithm, subscribe to NRL on 9 and get all your entertainment there.